Right, I think we'll make a start. Hello everybody, it's good to see so many of you here for, as you can see on the screen, a talk about the degree in ancient and medieval history and culture. So if you were looking for astrophysics, this is the moment to make a discreet exit. My name is Laura Cleaver and I'm the current programme director for this degree, and so what I'm going to do is talk to you fairly briefly about what the programme involves, look at some reasons why you might be interested in taking it, and then there'll be a chance to ask questions at the end, because I think in some ways that's more useful. You've also got today, and I know some of you have already seen, a stand over in the old dining hall where we've got a flock of very enthusiastic students who are keen to share their experiences with you. So do go and talk to them, because they will give you the unofficial guide to go with my official guide. So ancient and medieval history and culture sits in the Department of Histories and Humanities, but as it says in the title, the focus is ancient and medieval, roughly from around 2000 BC to around 1500 AD, and that's encompassing the whole of Western Europe and the Mediterranean. So we've got plenty of material to play with, and in putting the degree together, we wanted to do something that wasn't just history-based. So the culture aspect is important, and you'll see what that means as I go through. A few things then to kick it off. The first thing to say is that this is a unique degree programme in the English-speaking world. There really isn't anything else with quite the same scope and focus. So we really are looking for people who are willing to commit to working on that time period. As you can see on the screen, it's a 4-year programme. You take ancient and medieval history and culture all the way through, but it's divided between 3 departments: the Department of History of Art, the Department of History, and the Department of Classics, which means that you divide your time at the beginning roughly between those disciplines, and then you can focus as you go through into things that you are particularly interested in. Key areas of interest then are the history of art, ancient and medieval history, and archaeology. There's more archaeology in it potentially, if that's what you're interested in, than you might immediately guess from the title. There are also a few special things about this degree. If you want to take Latin, you have the opportunity, whether you've done no Latin before or some Latin, you can go in at beginner or advanced level. It's not compulsory, but if that's something that you're interested in, we will help you to develop those skills. There are field trips. You can go on a field trip in your 2nd or 3rd year, or both, which is a great opportunity to study works and monuments in the field, literally, and we'll talk more about that later on. And then we have a core module that looks at the city of Rome, and we'll come back to that. A way of bridging ancient and medieval things by looking at one specific place over that long time period. Why study the ancient and medieval world? You're all presumably interested because you turned up, but a few things to give you a sense of the kinds of questions that we cover. We're keen that the study that you do should have application for the world in which we now live. One of the questions that people who work with history always wrestle with is, why is this relevant? What does it matter to us today? So we come back to that in lots of different scenarios, and you've just got on the screen a couple of pictures of architecture to show you how the architecture of parts of the college was inspired by classical architecture, albeit many centuries after the event. So the ways in which antiquity informs the world in which we now live can be very diverse and sometimes unexpected. Some of the issues that you will touch upon, however: the world of politics, looking at the birth and development of democracy in ancient Greece, how that came through the Roman period, what that looked like in the Middle Ages, and how that has shaped the systems that we have today. The world of law, again, Roman law, incredibly important in developing the systems and structures for justice that we have today, and those were also taken up in the Middle Ages and refined through a specifically Christian lens. So they started to worry about things like who you were allowed to marry. So that's the picture at the bottom there. The idea that you're not allowed to marry people to whom you are closely related all comes out of discussions and debates in the Middle Ages. Christianity then, one of the great shaping forces of modern Western culture, and you will spend quite a lot of time engaging with both religion in the ancient world and then Christianity through the Middle Ages. And again, thinking about Rome, you've got two different views of Rome there. A modern photo of the Vatican, that great palace of both worldly and religious power in Rome, and then a 13th century representation of Rome with its walls and the river running through, which underneath tells us that Rome is the chief city of Christianity, and explains that this is because it was the great city of the pagan world, and therefore God saw fit to reform it and make it the great centre of Christianity. And we'll look at what that means and why people thought in those ways. Closer to home, we will look in a slightly navel-gazy way at how antiquity and the Middle Ages played a part in the development of the university. The fact that we have lectures where one person talks to lots of people, as well as seminars and discussions, those are all formats that develop through the Middle Ages, building on an ancient tradition. We'll look at the foundation of the early universities, Bologna, which begins really in the 11th century, and then Peter Lombard there is just representing the tradition of teaching in Paris through the 12th century, which saw the foundation of perhaps the most important medieval university in Paris in the 13th century. So there he is, hard at work, and he's got the most fantastic little shoes down the bottom there. For those of you interested in costume and fashion, see, there are all sorts of directions that you can take your studies in. So what actually does this look like on the ground? In the first year, you take a third art history, a third what we call classics, so ancient history and archaeology, or Latin, and a third medieval history. The way this is at the moment, it does change from time to time, but you have modules including, I think that should just be Greek and Roman history rather than Greek and Roman history, Greek and Roman art and architecture, Europe in the Middle Ages, looking at war and society in the age of the Crusades, and then in parallel to that, conflicts of church and state. You then have Introduction to European Art and Architecture, which runs from ancient Greece to the Renaissance, and an introduction to the practice of art history. For many of you, you'll have come along to this because history is your thing, it's what you're passionate about. So we know that some of you will have done no history before, some of you will have done no art history before, some of you will never have looked at the ancient world. So all of these are introductory courses designed to help you orientate yourself in the subject and build up the skills that you're going to need. And then those of you who want to do Latin, you can substitute Latin for some of the ancient history and culture as well. Building on that, in the second year you get more choice. You take 3 core modules which are typically something like the first 3 that you've got there. These rotate, but you either take Roman or Greek history, Europe, religion, culture and society, and then an art history course such as Glory of God, which looks at the art and architecture of the medieval church in the long 12th century, or what's actually running this year is a course on antiquity and innovation, looking at the early medieval art and architecture. That is half of your modules allocated already, but you then get to choose the other half. So you can see that you've start to be able to direct your study fairly early on. And you've got a list there of some of the things that you can do. So Greek and Roman archaeology, Roman Britain, Aegean Bronze Age, the Anglo-Saxons, Vikings, 100 Years' War, early modern architecture, Irish art, or very popular always, the field trip. And again, you can carry on taking Latin if that is something that you want to do. From there, in the third year, you have just one compulsory module, and it's that module looking at ancient and medieval Rome. A fantastic opportunity to really get to grips with one site, one city, over that long time period, and tease out lots of issues about history, culture, architecture in one site. That then means you get to choose 5/6 of your course, and again, there is an even longer list of modules than this, but this gives you an idea of some of the things that are usually available, and again, you've got Latin as well for those who really want to hone their skills. I said I'd talk a little bit more about the field trip, and just to prove to you that we go places and do things, here are some students in a very cold field trip to the north of England. They're standing on Hadrian's Wall here. The field trip happens in early January, so we were very lucky that we got away without snow that year. And it's an opportunity to go somewhere in Europe. Last year they went to Florence. This year they're going to Kent, so we move around and work in depth on a specific area and think about how buildings and objects interact with their landscapes. It's not all outdoors, as you can see. We do look at museums as well, and very often it's a chance to go behind the scenes and look at things that are not usually available to the public. So when we went to the north of England, we went to Durham Cathedral and were able to look at manuscripts in their collection, so going where the general public usually can't. There's work involved as well. Students have to write papers on their experiences and the things they see, but it's extremely good fun, as you can see from the happy smiling faces, and it's one of the things that students always cite as highlights of their time with us. In the fourth year then, you have an entirely free choice about what you want to do. So if you've decided that your passion is the Aegean Bronze Age, you can really focus on the ancient world. If you've equally decided that medieval documents are going to be your area of expertise, you can focus on that. You take 2 modules, again from a fairly broad choice, and you write a dissertation on a topic agreed with a supervisor. So at this point, you're putting everything that you've learnt into practice and coming up with a very substantial piece of research of your own. It's worth talking a little bit about some of the sources, again just to give you an idea of the sorts of things that come up. As you've probably already gathered from the photographs, we cover a wide range of sources, which might include the things listed on the screen there. So we train you to work with a wide range of primary sources, not just documents, not just historical texts, but monuments, manuscripts, coins, sculpture, and you've got a Greek vase there as well. And we put a lot of emphasis on trying to get you as much first-hand experience of these things as we can. We draw on the collections in the city, which are surprisingly rich, given that the Romans never got as far as Ireland. And we also take you other places. So again, you've got a group there in front of Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. We think too, as I said at the beginning, about the relevance to modern culture, so there's also scope for exploring how and why these things are of interest to us as scholars, but also to the wider public, looking at things like films and television. There are always questions about people who want to study abroad. Here, therefore, are the departments that we've got links with, and you can spend either a term or a year away seeing more of the world and expanding your experience. So there are lots of opportunities to go places and do things, and you can do that in the summer as well as in term time. Something that parents are often particularly concerned about: what do people go on to do? And the answer is a very wide range of things. As most of you will know, in this day and age, a degree very rarely sets you up for a vocation anymore, unless you're going to do something like nursing. Ancient and medieval history and culture gives you a broad skill set on which you can build, and a good degree from Trinity opens lots of doors. Some of the things that our students are interested in or have gone on to do include archaeology, museum and heritage work, archival work, auction houses, conservation, and then more generally things like teaching, publishing, university, research. Stepping back and looking more broadly, civil service, accountancy, advertising, computing, librarians, law, business. I should also put journalism up there. It's quite a popular one at the moment. And being at Trinity gives you lots of other opportunities, joining clubs and societies, chances to try out new things, build up your experience, and give yourself the best possible base from which to venture out into the real world. So that is a brief introduction to some of the things that we do. There is more information online, and my email address is there as well. Anybody who wants to come and talk at any point about this. And as I said before, there's also the stand over in the old dining hall. But we've got a few minutes for questions and comments. If you've got things, you'd like to know things that I haven't covered. So, yes.
Do you know how many applicants you get?
It varies from year to year, and because of the way the statistics work, it's about one in 4 of the the first choice applicants, as it were. But then there's a much bigger pool of people who list it as one of their choices, so it's difficult to give you exact figures. Yeah. But I should have said it's a very small program in that there are only 15 students a year, which is one of the things that the students love about it, because they feel that they get lots of attention and are well looked after by the department. Yeah.
Does it benefit you to have it as number one within your list?
I don't know enough about exactly how the admission process works. My understanding is that it does, because then you get it in your first round. But you can look at the admissions information again on the web. Will give you more kind of insight into that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Any other questions? Yeah, sorry.
How many hours a week do you usually spend in the classrooms, I think?
Yeah, so it decreases as you go up. In the first year we give you more time, and then as you develop you get more time to structure of your own. In the first year you would be looking at maybe, off the top of my head, about 20, somewhere between 15 and 20 hours a week, which compared to school is not very much, but then by the time you finish in your fourth year you just have 4 hours a week, so it moves between those. And again, it slightly depends on the options you take as to how much contact time you have. Yeah. Any other? Yeah.
The way you said in the fourth year, you can focus on particular topics. Does it have to be within the realms of the European studies or in detail as well?
Yeah. In terms of the dissertation, which is the point where you have the most choice, students take all sorts of things, and we do our best to accommodate you. So I've got somebody at the moment who's working on contacts between the Mongols and the West in the 13th century. So again, looking at how how to get beyond Western Europe. So it's certainly possible. I won't guarantee that we can do anything or everything, but recent subjects have included tattooing in the ancient world, medieval films of the 60s and 70s, as well as far more traditional things, studies of particular buildings or whatever. So yes, there's a real range we try and offer you. Anybody else? If you're happy, then I'll stay here for a few minutes, so if you want to come and talk to me, I'll be around, or failing that, as I say, go over to the dining hall, talk to the students, and they can give you the unofficial version. Hey,
you mentioned that you would do politics and law as part of this course. In what kind of depth do you go into that?
They come up as themes studies, and again, in terms of it's more in the history side of things, obviously. But yes, they're big themes that run through a lot of what we do. I mean, you're not studying law as a subject, but you're looking at the history of law as part of history of
would it be in would it be detailed?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah. How does it work? I mean, I just skimmed through it, but yes, you look at how did law work, how was it written about, how did the political structures work, when did they not work, how did the Senate work, and so on and so forth. Yeah, all those sorts of things.
Thank you.
Great.
I was just wondering, is there an archaeology stand in the dining hall?
It will be under ancient history and archaeology, so go into the classics department.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes, but it might not be labelled as such, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Hey, yeah.
So what kind of points do you need?
I should have said that, yeah. Last year the points were 4.25.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's normally quite, not too bad.
The assessments, would it be like one big exam at the end of the year, like finals, or would it be like continuous kind of?
It's a mixture.
Okay. Lots of essays and stuff.
Yes.
Okay.
In the first year you get a lot of continuous assessment and some exams. In the middle 2 years it's a balance between the two, and then at final year it is mostly exams plus your dissertation, which obviously is sort of continuous assessment. Okay.
Thank you.
Hey, yeah.
Do you know anything about UK culture reform history?
Yeah, a little bit. So you go through CAO again, and there's a conversion that happens for your A-level results to that. Have a look at the admissions site. In the prospectus, there's a thing about the admissions site. If you look on the web, they will give you all the ins and outs of how that works.
I mean, do you know roughly
Do I know
the
roughly?
equations of like this course?
I wouldn't. The points are 45. What that looks
that's
like.
for A-levels as well.
Yeah. What that equates to in A-level grades,
No.
I'm afraid I don't know, because they changed the A-level system apart from anything else.
That's all in here anyway.
Yeah. And again, more information on the web. And if you've got any doubts, get in touch with admissions. They're very helpful about all those sorts of things.
Thank you.
Okay?
This is a new program, isn't it?
Fairly. It's now 4 or 5 years old.
4 or 5 years. Oh, I got the sense that this was only the second year they were doing it.
Oh, with a talk here. Yeah.
No, sorry, I meant the program itself. So
No.
4 or 5 years.
Yeah, we've had a set of graduates. So that's with 5
Oh,
years
you've had
old.
your first
Yeah.
set. I think that's maybe what
That's-
they mean.
yeah,
They were
yeah.
talking about the first set of graduates. I'm quite struck when I look at this list. I mean, this one, yours is not part of this dual thing anyway. This is the dual one. But if you just look at the individual scores in it, it's quite a bit lower than. But I was thinking if every kid in this room wanted to come along to the class, you'd be full.
Exactly, it's pure numbers. It's all about
And how
numbers
come
and
15?
economics. When it was launched as a new program, that was to keep it manageable and to minimise the impact.
So it's
because
not going to increase it though then, that's what you're
the
saying.
plan is not to increase it at the moment. It's all to do with numbers within combinations of modules. Well, 15 is where we're sitting for now.
15 is.
Yeah.
So presumably the first year, if no one knows what it is, everyone's scratching their heads, you had less than 15.
No,
Presumably-
we've been full every year,
Sorry,
but the
I-
points were lower. What's happening is the points go up as it
But
becomes more
425 would still be fairly low compared to just about everything else.
I mean, 425 is the baseline, so most of our students have come in with much higher points than that. But 425 represents the lowest offers that we make.
Yeah, but because it's a purely mathematical thing, 425 is, the lowest
It's
common
baseline,
denominator, basically. but that could jump up.
Yeah, I mean it is going up and up and up. It's the low. It's baseline, and that we start with the highest one and then we work down. So 425 is the lowest one.
Yeah.
That's the minimum.
Yeah.
Upwards. Yeah.
Means anyone with 425 score
would have got in this year.
Would have gotten in, but presumably, so. I mean, well, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is if you get 30 applicants, it's likely to be quite a bit higher than that. So that could jump up next year and be 480 or something.
Yeah.
So that's unlikely.
That's
what I'm trying to get a sense
I know. And the problem
I know
is,
you can't. I can't hold you to anything.
I can't predict popularity and the grade.
Has that moved around in the last few years or not?
Yeah, it's moving upwards basically.
It's moving
gets
up.
more established.
So 415 was up, 425 was up from the previous year, up from the previous year.
Yeah.
Okay, and is the number of people applying going up? Do you have some idea?
I have absolutely no idea of the
don't know.
statistics on that. I actually haven't seen the single on the statistics, which is why the numbers fluctuate for all sorts of reasons. But in basically our demand is going up because it's a new program that's establishing itself and people are starting to take it seriously. So yeah.
Matthew, do you have any other questions? You're tired of having your dad ask questions.
Where are you from? Okay, so you're going to do the A-level conversion.
Yeah. We sound like we're
really
coming straight off the boat from the States, but not really.
This is the interesting thing with the point conversion, in that actually we've got an awful lot of European students, so we've got a much higher than average non-Irish intake, which again...
What, this year, or you mean, or
Generally. This year is particularly high, but... for obvious reasons, with tuition fees and everything else, we're looking at our UK applicants.
Well, your tuition fees must be about the same as you. I haven't even checked.
We're looking for something like full fees or something like €3,000 a year. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Glad you like this as your first choice. Compared to U.S. universities, my gosh.
It's very
all right. Thank you very much.
No, it's nice to meet you.